today. First, we'll talk about the parts of the integumentary system, then the functions, important functions of the integumentary system. Then we'll talk about the main organ or part of the integumentary system, which is the skin. We'll talk about the skin, which is the main organ or part of this system. In our body, we have two types of skin, thick and thin. We'll see the structure of a thick skin and a thin skin. We'll see the difference between thick and thin skin. Then we'll talk about the glands of the skin. Skin has three different types of glands. Okay, we'll talk about the glands of the skin. Then we'll talk about the layers of the skin. Skin has two layers. Outer layer is called the epidermis. Inner layer is called the dermis. So we'll see the epidermis and the dermis of the skin. So if you see the skin, this is the epidermis, outer layer, okay, and inner layer, which is much thicker than the outer one, is the dermis. Okay. Now, epidermis also has 4 or 5 layers, depending on the type of skin. In thin skin epidermis, you have 4 layers. In thick skin epidermis, you have 5 layers. So epidermis has 4 or 5 layers, and dermis has only 2 layers. Okay. So we'll see what are the layers of the epidermis and what are the layers of the dermis. So we'll talk about that. Okay. Then we'll see the structures present inside the dermis. Most of the skin structures are located inside the dermis. So we'll see what are those structures present in the dermis. Also, we'll talk about a different topic, which is the water loss. We lose the water from our body in different ways. One way is through the skin. So we'll see how we lose the water from the body. First, the parts of the integumentary system. The main organ is the skin, and accessory structures are nail, hair, and glands of the skin. Remember, not all the glands of the body, only the glands of the skin. So those are the parts. Functions. Number 1 is protection. You know that integumentary system covers the whole body, and by covering the whole body, your integumentary system protects the internal organs or structures of the body. Your integumentary system separates inside the body from outside. Now, integumentary system provides 3 types of protection or forms 3 types of barrier to provide protection: chemical, biological, and physical or mechanical. First, how the integumentary system provides protection by chemicals. Your skin secretes low pH secretion. Low pH secretion. Low pH means acidic, you know that, right? Okay, so acidic secretion that can kill or inactivate the microorganisms. Another is integumentary system secretes a chemical that is called defensin. This chemical has bactericidal action. So by secreting low pH secretion, that means acidic secretion, and by defensive secretion, your skin provides protection. Biological protection or barrier. In your skin, you have phagocytic cells. The phagocytic cells of the skin are dendritic cells and macrophages. Those two types of cells do phagocytosis, engulf the antigens or microorganisms. Okay, so that's the biological protection. Then physical or mechanical protection. How skin protects the body by physical or mechanical means. In your skin, a protein, highly specialized protein called keratin is produced. So keratin is a highly specialized protein, and another chemical is produced in the skin that is called glycolipid. Glucose and lipid together form the glycolipid. So keratin is a highly specialized protein, and glycolipid, glucose, that means carbohydrate, and lipid. Those two chemicals block the water and water soluble chemicals to enter from entering into the body. So keratin and glycolipid forms a barrier that prevents the water and water soluble substances from entering into the body. You know that when you take shower, since your skin has those two chemicals, water cannot enter into the body, right? Otherwise, when you sit in water for a long time, if skin allows the water and water soluble chemicals or antigens enter into the body, that would be dangerous, right? So your skin doesn't allow the water or water soluble substances because of it has keratin and glycolipids. Okay, so those are the three types of protection given by the skin. Number 2, body temperature regulation. Regulation of body temperature. How? You all know that if the body temperature increases, skin releases sweat, right? Sweat secretion occurs, and sweat is mainly water. So when water leaves the body, lot of heat gets out from the body with the water, because you already know that water has high heat capacity. We have talked about that before, right? Small amount of water can take a lot of heat. So when the water will get out, it will take a lot of heat out from the body. So the body temperature will go down. Okay. Another way, your skin releases the heat from the body. How? When the body temperature increases, what happens? All the blood vessels of your skin dilate. Okay. So if the blood vessels dilate, more blood flows, right, into it. So in the body surface or in your skin, more blood flow occurs. So when in the skin more blood flows, what happens? From the blood, it can easily get out from the body through the skin. Okay. So that is another way your skin reduces the body temperature. One is by sweating, another is by vasodilatation, dilating the blood vessels of the skin. So more blood will flow, it will get out easily. Cutaneous sensations, very important function of your integumentary system. In your skin, you have the receptors. Pain, touch, temperature. Those receptors are cutaneous receptors. Cutaneous means skin receptors. Pain receptors, touch, temperature receptor. And because of the presence of those receptors, you feel those sensations. You feel pain, touch, temperature, and those feelings, sensations are very important for your survival. Just think that if in this room the temperature increases, if you don't feel that, then you won't take action, right? You won't get out. So you need those sensations to detect the changes in the environment, what's going on around you. Metabolic functions. I have mentioned before that with the help of sunlight, skin produces a chemical that is called cholecalciferol. You must remember that skin produces the chemical cholecalciferol, which is an inactive form of vitamin D, precursor of vitamin D, inactive. Okay. Then what happens? This cholecalciferol goes to the kidneys where it is converted to calcitrol. Okay, and calcitrol is the active vitamin D. So now we can say that by producing cholecalciferol, your skin helps in the synthesis of vitamin D, calcitrol. Excretion. Small amount of metabolic wastes are excreted through the skin with your sweat, particularly the nitrogenous wastes and salts are excreted out from the body through the skin. That's why if you taste your sweat, you say that it's salty. Now, so those are the important functions. Now we will see the types of skin. In your body, you have two types of skin, thick and thin. Now, where you will find the thick and thin skin? Thin skin covers most of the body except the palm and soles. Thick skin is present in the palms of the hand and soles of the feet. Now, you remember I told you that skin has two layers. The epidermis is the outer layer and dermis is the inner layer, right? Now, if you see the thick skin, epidermis, it has 5 layers. Okay, so in thick skin epidermis, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In case of thin skin, you have only 4 layers. One layer is less in thin skin epidermis. Remember, dermis is same. Okay, so that is the structural difference between thick and thin skin. Another way, we divide the skin depending on the presence or absence of hair. But this division is not very important. Hairy skin, non-hairy skin. We will mostly focus on thick and thin skin. Okay, so 2 layers of the skin, epidermis and dermis. Now, under the dermis of the skin, you have another layer which is called the hypodermis. But remember, all of you must remember that hypodermis is not a layer of the skin. It is under the skin. So skin has 2 layers. Hypodermis is not a layer of the skin. It is under the skin. And hypodermis contains a lot of adipose tissue or fat. So this layer is mainly formed by adipose tissue or fat. This layer has a clinical importance. You know that subcutaneous injection is given in hypodermis. because this layer is also called subcutaneous layer. Same thing. Hypodermis is also called subcutaneous layer. And subcutaneous injection is given in this layer. Why? You know that this layer has a lot of fat, right? So a small amount of blood supply. Fat always has very small amount of blood circulation. So when you inject the drug in subcutaneous layer, what happens? Since small amount of blood flows there, the drug will stay there for a long time, right? So slowly it will work, will be taken into the blood, and it will last for a long time. Make sense? So if you want any drug to work for a long time, like insulin, right? For several hours, you will inject um, in the hypodermis, subcutaneous injection. Okay. Important structures found in the skin. If you see the structure of the skin, in the skin you have glands, sweat glands and sebaceous glands. Now you remember I said there are three types of glands, but here you see two. Why? Because there are two different types of sweat glands we have. Okay, so two types of sweat glands and sebaceous glands. Hair follicles, hair roots, receptors. I have already mentioned pain, touch, temperature, those receptors are present, and those receptors are mostly located at the free nerve endings, ending of the free nerves, and corpuscles, Pacinian corpuscles, or there are a couple other corpuscles. Blood vessels. Skin has blood vessels and tiny muscles called erector pili muscle, or you can say pili, erector pili muscles. So those are the main structures you will find, or important structures you will find inside the skin. Now remember, most of the skin structures are present in the dermis. That means those structures are found in the, most of those structures are found in the dermis. Epidermis has only cellular layers. So many cells form the epidermis. But in the dermis, you have hair root, hair follicle, erectopili muscle, glands. Most of the receptors, those are blood vessels, those are located in the dermis. Okay. Epidermis is mainly formed by the cells, different types of cells, many layers of cells. Dermis is vascular, epidermis is avascular. That means the dermis has the blood vessels, but epidermis doesn't. Now the question is, if only the dermis has the blood vessels, like these are the blood vessels here, okay, how the epidermis gets nutrition and oxygen? From the dermis by diffusion, oxygen and nutrients enter into the epidermis. Epidermis doesn't have any direct blood vessels. By diffusion from the underlying dermis. Now you tell me, you can answer, if epidermis gets nutrition and oxygen by diffusion from underlying dermis, then which cells will get more nutrition and oxygen? In the bottom, right? Those cells are close to the dermis. Those cells are away from the dermis, they get less nutrition and oxygen. That's why we see many superficial cells of the epidermis are dead cells. Make sense? Many of them are dead. And those cells get out from the skin and new cells are produced from the stem cells and move up. Okay? So the superficial cells are replaced by the new cells. Okay. Now, you know that epidermis is mainly formed by cells, different types of cells, many layers. So, what are the important cells found in the epidermis? The outer lining of the epidermis is formed by squamous, stratified squamous. You know that many layers of flat cells. Squamous means flat, stratified means multi-layer. And those cells, squamous cells, are keratinized squamous cells. Now, what does it mean? What is keratin? I mentioned a few minutes ago. Protein. Highly specialized protein, right? So, those squamous cells are filled with keratin. That's why those are called keratinized squamous cells. Make sense? So they have keratin inside. And that's why the water cannot enter because of the keratin. Other cells are keratinocytes. Now, again keratin you hear. So, two types of cells related to keratin you have in the skin. One is the cells, those are filled with keratin. Just I have mentioned that squamous cells filled with keratin. So these are called keratinized cells. Okay? These are squamous cells filled with keratin. Another type of cells we have in the epidermis, those cells produce and secrete keratin. So these cells produce and release keratin. These are called keratinocytes. Okay. So you see, keratinized cells and keratinocytes are two different types of cells, right? Keratinocytes do what? Produce and secrete keratin, and keratinized cells get filled with keratin. Okay. So what happens? These cells produce and release keratin, then these keratin enter into the squamous cell to make them keratinized cells. Now, this process, how the squamous cells get filled with keratin or filled by keratin, that process is called keratinization. Keratinization is the process by which the squamous cells get filled with the protein keratin. Melanocytes. Melanocytes are the cells that produce melanin. Keratinocytes are the cells that produce keratin. Melanin is a pigment, brown to dark colored pigment, and that pigment is mainly responsible for the color of the skin. Melanin is responsible for the color of the skin. If in someone's skin you have more melanin, that means your skin will be darker, right? If you have lack of melanin, your skin will be less dark or white. So that's the melanocytes. Dendritic cells, I have already mentioned that dendritic cells are phagocytic cells. They can engulf, so provides immunity or defense. Tactile cells are touch receptors. So touch receptors are tactile cells. Now, if you see the structure of the skin, here you are familiar to this. You have seen the model, skin model. So you see the outer layer is the epidermis here, this part, and this is the dermis. So dermis is much thicker, right? And under the dermis, this is what? Hypodermis. Lot of fat. See, these are the fat globules. So this is not a layer of the skin. Epidermis, dermis. Now, you see most of the skin structures are located in the dermis. Hair root, hair follicle, glands, sebaceous glands, sweat glands, Pacini and corpuscle, three nerve endings, erectophyllae muscle, and blood vessels. You see no blood vessels in the epidermis. Okay. Now, what are those 4 or 5 layers of the epidermis? If you start from the innermost layer of the epidermis, innermost layer is the stratum basale or basal layer. This layer is very thin, only a single or 2 rows of cells form this layer. So again, this is the dermis, this is epidermis, right? And the epidermis innermost layer is the stratum basal or basal layer. This layer is mainly formed by a single or 2 layers of stem cells. Okay? So that's why this layer is also called stratum germinativum, germinal layer. That means the layer that can produce new cells. Once a new cell is produced from the stem cells here, you see, it takes the new cell to go all the way to the outermost layer 25 to 45 days, because you know that outer cells are getting out, removed, so new cells must move up, okay, to replace them. It takes 25 to 45 days. The next layer is the stratum spinosum. Now, if you see the stratum spinosum, you will see the cells have spines or spikes in the membrane. So that's why this layer is called spinosum. The outer surface of the cell has spikes. Uh, this layer is also called prickly layer. Inside the cells of this layer, you have abundant melanin granules and dendritic cells. That means the melanin pigments and dendritic cells, phagocytic cells are present in this layer. Next layer is the stratum granulosum. If you see stratum granulosum, this layer, you'll see the cells are filled with granules. That's why it is called granulosum. Tiny particles, granules. Okay. So, stratum granulosum. What kind of granules? Carotohyaline and lamellated granules. Those are the granules present inside the cells. Carotohyaline and lamellated granules. Remember those 2 names. Then stratum lucidum. Stratum lucidum is only present in the thick skin epidermis. Only present in thick skin epidermis, absent in thin skin. Okay. So this layer is also called clear layer, transparent layer. It's like a layer of glass, transparent. Okay. So this is the stratum lucidum, only present in the thick skin. If I ask you, thick skin epidermis has which layer present but absent in thin skin, that's the lucidum. Then the outermost layer is the cornea. This layer is formed by squamous cells filled with keratin that we have just talked a few minutes ago. Keratin filled cells, squamous cells. That means keratinized squamous cells, and they form many layers. That's why stratified squamous, keratinized stratified squamous. Most of these cells are dead cells, okay, but they are filled with, still they are filled with keratin. So many layers of stratified squamous cells. Now, this layer is very thick in thick skin. If you see the thick skin, this outermost layer, corneum, is very thick. If you see thin skin, it is thin. And this layer gives the thickness of the thick skin. Because in thick skin, this layer is very thick. In thin skin, it is thin. So, stratum corneum is responsible for the thickness of the thick skin, not the lucidum. Although lucidum is absent in thin skin, present in thick skin, it has nothing to do with the thickness. Thickness is given by the cornea. Since this layer has keratinized cells, this layer is the layer which provides waterproofness. Okay. Here you see the thick and thin skin side by side. See the stratum corneum in thin skin and stratum corneum in thick skin. Okay, so much thicker. Here they have shown 4 layers. That means this is a thin skin. Although this is not the real histology picture, you can see stratum basal or basal layer. These are the stem cells. Okay, see dark color. These are the stem cells. They produce new cells. Then spinosum. If you look very carefully, you see spikes or spines in the cell membrane. Then granulosum. Look inside these cells. You see the granules, dots, and corneum. These are squamous, flat cells, many layer, and filled with keratin. You can just escape that, same thing. We have talked about keratinization. Now, we'll see the layers of the dermis. Although dermis is much thicker than epidermis, dermis has only 2 layers. Outer layer, which forms about 20% thickness of dermis, is called the papillary layer. Inner layer, which forms about 80% thickness of the dermis, is called the reticular layer. So now, if I see 2 layers of the dermis, 20% thickness is given by the papillary layer and 80% thickness is given by reticular layer. Okay. Now, papillary layer is formed by loose areola. All of you know that. We have seen many times. Loose areolar type of connective tissue proper. Loose areolar. Remember, right? Loose areolar. Collagen fibers and elastic fibers are there. So this is loose. Reticular layer is formed by dense irregular. You must remember this one too. Dense irregular type of connective tissue. Okay. Now you tell me which one is soft, which one is hard. Reticular is hard, right? Because it's dense, and loose is soft. Okay, so that's why dermatitis, which is the inflammation of the dermis, right? Dermatitis is the inflammation of the dermis, destroys or affect the papillary layer, not the reticular layer, because reticular layer is very strong, hard. So dermatitis is the inflammation of the papillary layer of the dermis. Microorganisms can easily enter into this layer or easily can spread, or any mechanical injury can easily destroy this layer because this layer is soft. Since this layer is very hard, it's difficult for microorganisms to enter, as well as any pressure or mechanical force cannot destroy this layer. Okay. Water loss. We lose water from the body in different ways. Some water losses we feel, we see. Those are called sensible water losses. Some water losses we don't feel or see, but we lose water. Those are insensible water loss. Make sense? Sensible and insensible. The main way of water loss is urination. You know that, right? So that is sensible or insensible? Sensible. We see that. We feel that. Sweating is sensible or insensible? Sensible. Yeah. When sweating occurs, you can feel or see or touch. Now, you know that we lose water when we breathe, when we talk. Do you see that? We don't see that, right? So, insensible. Breathing or talking. Also, through the skin, not only sweating, evaporation takes place. 24 hours, we are losing water. Small amount, but 24 hours, continuously we are losing small amount of water by evaporation. That we don't see. So, that is insensible. Okay. So, just remember the two ways, sensible and insensible. And through the skin, we lose water by both sensible and insensible means. Sweating is what? Sensible. And evaporation, insensible. Okay, so that's why we need to know that. Skin color. Color of the skin is given by the pigments. Mainly, the skin color is given by the pigment melanin. I have already mentioned that. Melanin is brown to black pigment and responsible for dark skin color. If someone has more melanin, the skin will be darker. Less melanin or lack of melanin, white. Now, the melanin has a important function. What is that? Melanin forms a layer in the skin, and that layer protects your skin from UV radiation. You know UV radiation, right? UV radiation is very harmful, can cause damage of DNA and can cause cancer, skin cancer. So, melanin forms a protecting layer in the skin and stops the UV radiation from entering into the deeper layers of the skin. Make sense? So, that is the function of melanin. Now, keratin, another pigment which is present in human skin in trace amount, very small amount, very little. Particularly, you will find keratin in the palm and sole, but a small amount. Yellow to orange colored pigments. But keratin is heavily present in some fruits and vegetables. You know that, right? Like skin of the orange, a lot of keratin. Carrots have a lot of keratin. That's why the color is orange or yellow. Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is red colored pigment present inside the red blood cells. The color of the blood is red because of hemoglobin, right? Hemoglobin is red, that's why the color of the blood is red. Color of red blood cell is red because of hemoglobin, right? So, you know that blood circulates in the skin, right? So, if in someone's blood has more hemoglobin, the color of the skin will be pink. If less hemoglobin, like anemia, the color of skin will get pale, because you know that we know blood flows in the skin, right? So more hemoglobin, more redness. Less hemoglobin, less redness. Okay. Now, another pigment is not indicated here. That is also important. That is called the bilirubin. Yellow pigments. Okay, so bilirubin is yellow colored pigment, and bilirubin comes from the hemoglobin. After the hemoglobin is released from the red blood cells die, you know, after 90 to 120 days, hemoglobin comes out, and a part of hemoglobin becomes bilirubin. Okay, is converted to bilirubin, and that gives the yellow coloration of the skin. Now, skin color can help us to diagnose some clinical conditions. Example, anemia. You know that anemia is lack of hemoglobin in the blood, right? So if someone's blood has less hemoglobin, the color of the skin will be pale. So by looking the color of the skin, we can detect anemia. Hypertension. In hypertension or high blood pressure, more blood flows in the body surface. So if you look particularly in the face area, particularly if you look the face, in hypertension patient, the face will be like flushed. More blood flows in the face, flushed skin. Jaundice. If in someone's blood, red blood cell destruction occurs more, then that can lead to jaundice. Excessive destruction of red blood cell and hemoglobin, that will produce more bilirubin, and that is the jaundice. Cyanosis, bluish coloration of the skin. If you see the skin color has turned to blue, we will consider that as cyanosis, because that happens due to decreased oxygen in the body. Make sense? Increased carbon dioxide in the body. So that's the cyanosis. So some clinical conditions we can diagnose by looking at the skin color. Now, the glands of the skin. Skin has the glands, sweat glands and sebaceous glands, right? Both glands or all skin glands are exocrine type glands. In our body, we have two types of glands, exocrine and what? Endocrine. Skin glands are what type of glands? Exocrine. All skin glands are exocrine type glands. That's why we need to know how the exocrine glands secrete the chemicals. So, exocrine glands release the chemicals in three ways: merocrine type of secretion, apocrine type of secretion, and holocrine type of secretion. You have to remember it. So, exocrine glands release the chemicals in three ways. What are those three modes of secretion? Merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine. Those glands release by merocrine way, those are called merocrine glands. Those release by chemicals by apocrine way, those are apocrine sweat glands. Apocrine glands, and those by holocrine method, those are holocrine glands. Now, What are those three ways of secretion? I'll show you that. So, some exocrine glands do what? These are the cells inside the gland. Okay. In some exocrine glands, the cells produce vesicles, round membranous structures, and the chemicals accumulate inside the vesicles. Okay. So, vesicles. And then what happens? The vesicles move towards the apical end, free end. Okay. And then the rupture of the vesicles occur and chemicals get out. Okay. So that's how the chemicals are released, by producing and rupturing the vesicles. And this type of release of chemical is called merocrine. A merocrine type of secretion, and these glands are called merocrine glands. Okay, another type of exocrine glands do what? They don't produce vesicles. These are the cells inside the gland. The chemical molecules are produced inside the cells, and then what happens? These chemicals will move to the upper portion of the cells. Okay, so first the chemicals will be produced inside the cell, and they will move to the upper portion of the cells. Now all the cells have chemicals in the upper portion, and what will happen next? Entire upper portion of the cells will be destroyed, and the chemicals will be released. So now, after the chemical is released, you see from the entire upper portion, this portion is gone. Then from the lower part, again new top part will be formed, upper part will be formed. Chemicals will again move towards the upper end, and again the entire upper surface will be destroyed. So the chemicals will get out. So this is called, this type of secretion is called apocrine. Secretion, and the glands are called apocrine type glands, exocrine glands. Okay, then another way is the holocrine. What happens in holocrine? Have you heard the word holocaust? Holocaust? Right. That means death or destruction, right? So what happens in holocrine type of secretion? These are the cells, okay, and the cells have chemicals everywhere. And when the secretion occurs, the cells are completely destroyed. All the cells are destroyed completely. So the chemicals will get out. Now all the cells are gone, right? From the stem cells, new cells will be formed. Again, the chemicals will be synthesized, will be produced, and the cells will die completely. Destruction. New cells from the stem cells will be formed again. Okay? So that is called the holocrine mode of secretion, and those glands are holocrine type of glands. In your skin, you have two types of sweat glands and one type of sebaceous gland, right? That I have mentioned before. And those three types of glands have three types of secretion. So that's why you need to know this. Now, the glands of the skin, sweat glands. Two types of sweat glands are eccrine sweat glands. Those are also called merocrine sweat glands because the secretion is merocrine type of secretion. That is what? This one, merocrine type secretion. So eccrine sweat glands release the chemicals by merocrine mode. That's why they are also known as merocrine. Another type of sweat gland are apocrine. That means what? Only the upper portion, entire upper portion of the cells will be destroyed. That's the apocrine. Right? So apocrine sweat glands. Their secretion will be by apocrine way. And sebaceous glands are holocrine type of exocrine gland. That means when the sebaceous secretion occurs, the cells are completely destroyed. So new cells are produced from the stem cell. So you see three types of skin glands release the chemicals in three different ways: merocrine, apocrine, holocrine. Now, merocrine or eccrine sweat glands are abundant on palms, soles, and forehead in those areas, and release sweat. Sweat is highly watery. 99% volume of sweat is water. Okay, so highly watery secretion, water-like secretion. In sweat, you have sodium chloride, which is salt. You know that. That's why the sweat is salty. Vitamin C, antibodies, and metabolic wastes. Those are present in the sweat. Then the function. The function of eccrine sweat glands is thermoregulation, regulation of body temperature, because you know that sweat takes the heat out, right? We know that water takes the heat out. So reducing the body temperature, thermoregulation. Apocrine sweat glands are confined in the axillary and anogenital areas, more closed areas, where the chance of bacteria to grow is high, because those areas are axillary anogenital areas, are closed, more closed areas, and the secretion is oily. So you see that one type of sweat gland produce watery secretion, another type of sweat glands produce oily secretion. The sebaceous gland, also known as oil glands, widely distributed in the body and mainly grows from the hair follicles. That's why when you will see the hair sebaceous gland, you will see they are attached to the hair follicle, because they grow from the hair follicle. Become active at puberty. Okay, they become active at puberty, and the secretion is called sebum. So sebaceous secretion is known as sebum, and the type of secretion is holocrine. Complete destruction of the cell. Action of sebum, bactericidal. Sebum has the chemicals that can destroy or inactivate the microorganisms. That's why the action is bactericidal action. Another function is, since it is oily secretion, it keeps the skin moist and soft, as well as the hair. So those people who have more sebaceous secretion, their skin and hair will be soft. Okay, more soft. You won't need to buy the lotion, right? Because you have enough sebaceous secretion in the body. Okay. Here you see, this is the hair follicle, you know that, and you'll see most of the time the sebaceous glands are attached to the hair follicle because they grow from the hair follicle. And if you see the real histology under the microscope, this is the hair follicle here, and this is the sebaceous gland. Now inside the sebaceous gland, these are the cells. And what happens during the sebaceous secretion? All these cells will be destroyed, okay, completely, and the secretion will occur. The oil will get out from the cells. Now you see here, these are the stem cells, so they will produce new cells. And then again the cells will be destroyed during the secretion. Quickly, we'll talk about the accessory structures. Here, your hair is formed by dead keratinized cells. Dead keratinized cells. Keratinized cells are filled with what? Keratin. Yeah, that protein, right? Your skin also has dead keratinized cells. Remember? Now, why the color of hair is darker? Because of melanin. Okay, so if you have more melanin mixed with keratin, that will give darker hair. Make sense? If you you have less melanin, then the keratin gets mixed with less amount of melanin. Okay, that's why the color of the hair is different in different person. The keratin of your hair is slightly different than the keratin of your skin. The keratin of your hair is more durable and hard than the keratin of your skin. Skin keratin or that protein is softer. Now, if you see the shaft of the hair, the structure of the shaft of the hair, only this is the shaft, that part is exposed, right? The outside. So if you cut it and see the structure, the shaft has three structures. Outer part is called the cuticle, middle is called the cortex, and innermost part is called the medulla. So this is the structure of the shaft. You see only this part of the hair. Now inside the skin, scalp, you have what? You have the follicle. So if you cut the follicle and see, in follicle you have shaft and few other layers around it. Okay. So now actually you see what happens. This is the shaft of your hair and it goes inside the skin, and this is the follicle. So if you cut here, you have three, right? But if you cut here, you have those three inside, because shaft is inside, right? Those three structures inside, and you have few other layers around here. Okay, make sense? So now you have additional layers in the follicle. This is a cross section of the follicle. So you see first here, this is the shaft inside. It has three structures: medulla, cortex, cuticle. So this is the shaft. And then what are the additional layers in the follicle? You have internal epithelial root sheath around the cuticle, then external epithelial root sheath, then glassy layer, transparent layer, like a thin layer of glass, and then the connective tissue root sheath. So those four layers are the additional layers around the shaft in the follicle. Now you must remember these three I have mentioned here. And now if I ask you any question that which one is not a layer of the shaft but a layer of the follicle, you can answer. Okay, so make sure that you know at least the structures in the shaft. Inside the hair root, just know that you have few structures. You have papilla, you have the matrix and some melanocytes around the papilla. You can skip this one, not very important. Now, yeah, that's it. Type of hairs. Two types of hair we found in the body: vellus and terminal. Vellus hair are pale, fine body hair found in the children and adult female. Soft, pale, fine hair. Terminal hair are coarse, thick hair of the eyebrow, scalp, axillary, genital, pubic areas. Those are terminal hair. Uh, Now, baldness is the loss of hair. Two types of baldness we see. One is called alopecia and another is true or frank baldness. Alopecia happens to everybody. When we reach at age 40, then we start to lose a lot of hair, right? Thinning of the hair after age 40. That is alopecia. Now, true or frank baldness is, no hair. It's very shiny scalp. You'll see the scalp is kind of very shiny. That's the true or frank baldness. This one is a genetically determined baldness. That means if the father has baldness, then the chance of the son getting the baldness is high. So determined by the gene. And uh, the gene helps to synthesis a chemical that is called dihydrotestosterone or dihydrotestosterone. That chemical, testosterone is male sex hormone. This is a precursor of testosterone. Anyway, just know that DHT, dihydrotestosterone, is the chemical that is synthesized by the influence of that gene. So if someone has more DHT, the hair follicle will grow, the hair less. Okay, so that's the action of that. It inhibits the yeah. Okay. So inhibits the hair follicles to grow the hair. Make sense? Inhibits the hair follicle. Regulation of body temperature. We have already talked about that, but just know that in your brain you have a structure which is very important to regulate the body temperature. That is called the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, we already know that how your skin reduces the body temperature. We have talked about that, right? Sweating and vasodilatation, right? More blood will flow. But who does that? We did not talk about that, right? Someone has to do that. Someone has to tell them to do that, right? So the hypothalamus sends signal to the glands and blood vessels. Tell the glands to release the sweat and causes the vasodilatation in the skin. So more blood will flow, it will get out easily, and more sweating will occur. It will get out easily. Now, if the body temperature drops, your skin will do what? If the body temperature drops, then this is interesting. It's not mentioned here actually. The sweat glands you have seen in the model, right? Like tube, and this is the skin surface. So this is the gland, sweat gland. Okay, like coiled tube, and this is the duct, and this is the pore. Okay, this is the pore. So if the body temperature decreases, your body gets cold, then sweating should not occur, right? So what will happen? The constriction of the duct and the pore will occur. It will get almost closed, and this will get very narrow, constricted. So sweating will not occur. Okay, so no more heat loss will occur. That is one thing. And another thing is shivering of the body occurs. That shivering increases the muscle activity, right? Contraction of the muscle, and that will produce heat to increase the body temperature. So these are the two ways the heat loss will be stopped and heat production will occur. Dermatitis, we have talked about that. Inflammation of the papillary layer, which is loose areola, right? Soft. Now, what can cause dermatitis? Dermatitis can be caused by infection, that means microorganisms, bacteria, virus, fungi, uh, radiation, UV radiation, you know that if you sit under the sun for a long time, right, redness of the skin occurs. That means inflammation of the dermis. Mechanical irritation. If you scratch, dermatitis can occur. Chemicals, poison ivy or acid. If you get, you touch the poison ivy or acid, then that is the chemical uh, cause of dermatitis. Skin cancer or carcinoma of the skin is the last thing. So skin cancer is very commonly heard. There are three types of skin cancer. The good thing about the skin cancer is the most common type of skin cancer is least malignant. Malignant is dangerous. So what are the skin cancers? Basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma and melanoma. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common but least malignant. Squamous cell carcinoma, second most common, and melanoma is the most dangerous, most malignant type but least common. Basal cell carcinoma occurs due to uncontrolled proliferation or uncontrolled multiplication of the cells in stratum basal, innermost layer of the dermis. You know that, where you have the stem cells. But this type of carcinoma can be treated successfully by surgical incision. 99% patients get cured. Squamous cell carcinoma occurs due to the uncontrolled multiplication of keratinocytes in stratum spinosum, and most common on the scalp, ear, lower lip, and hands. Those are the common areas. Prognosis is good if you treat with radiation therapy and remove surgically. So what we do usually, we remove that tissue and also we put radiation to kill the adjacent cells, give radiation. Melanoma is the most malignant, most dangerous type of skin cancer, and abnormal multiplication of melanocytes cause melanoma. And you can easily detect the melanoma by looking the color. Since melanocytes are involved, the color, they produce more melanin, so the color of that area becomes black, brown, tan, or sometimes red or blue. Highly metastatic, that means if you see from outside, you will think that only this area, the cells of that area are carcinogenic, but actually metastasis means it spreads to other tissues. So inside the melanoma, you'll see it spreads farther away, the abnormal cells, cancer cells. So you need wide surgical removal and immunotherapy. Okay, so those are the ways. Let's just finish this. Burns also commonly heard. Why we hear the burns related to the skin? Because the skin covers the body, right? So if something burns your body, first the skin gets affected. We divide the burn into three stages: first degree, second degree, and third degree. Just know that if only the epidermis is affected, that is the first degree burn. If the epidermis and part of dermis is affected, that is second degree. If entire epidermis and entire dermis both are affected. That is the third degree burn. Okay. So let's see the picture. Here you see first degree in burn in the fingers and second degree burn in the palm. In first degree burn, redness and swelling. In second degree burn, blisters, white patches are formed. Okay? And third degree burn, both dermis and epidermis are destroyed. In this case, you need the transplantation. You need to get the skin from other part of the body and put it there. Make sense? Because the skin is destroyed entirely. No more cell is there, right? Skin cell is there. So it cannot produce new